Well, hi there. Warm welcome. You watching Times Now, and I'm Meghna Dekha. Our focus continues to be the world at war. Yes, it's not an isolated war with only 3 nations in direct combat. Unfortunately, the flames of war have singed across the world, be it directly or in the airspace or in the supply chains. We'll discuss all of that, but first up, let's get you the top developments coming in the Iran-Israel-United States war. Well, U.S. warplane has crashed in Kuwait. That's the latest update which is coming in. Iran has also shared the video of U.S. fighter jet crash which has happened. In fact, there has been fresh Iranian attacks also which have been reported from Doha in Dubai, where missiles have been fired on Bahrain as well, in Abu Dhabi as well. But unfortunately, as I was saying, it's not a war in isolation. Now, Hezbollah too has entered the Israel-Iran war. In fact, Lebanon government has also ordered, meanwhile, the arrest of all Hezbollah operators. Now, strikes have been happening and the Middle East is on fire. Unfortunately, things are only getting more serious, with Donald Trump saying that there will be at least 4 more weeks of war. With that, more breaking news which is coming in. Now there's smoke being seen near the U.S. Embassy in Kuwait. You can see these visuals coming in of smoke rising from the U.S. Embassy area. And this is in Kuwait. The reports are coming in. This is smoke in the immediate vicinity of the embassy. We'll have to wait and see as to why and what caused the smoke. Have there been any strikes on the U.S. Embassy? Remember, Iran has been targeting U.S. facilities, U.S. embassies as well in the Gulf. And of course, U.S. embassies have across, and many of them have been evacuated as well. These are the first visuals which are coming in. You can see the smoke rising from the U.S. Embassy there. We are trying to get you more details. So far, this is the only picture that we have to give us a sense. What we do know, however, is that ambulance have been seen rushing towards it, towards the embassy. And it seems like firefighting teams are also on spot to try and douse the fire. What you can see now, very disturbing visuals coming in of a world at war. Unfortunately, singed by the flames of war are even U.S. embassy areas which are there in several parts of the Gulf nations which are also on strike. In fact, we have seen one of the more fatal attacks which have happened, but this one was, of course, not a strike by Iran, but a groundswell of support which came in favor of Khamenei, was that in Karachi that we saw yesterday. And now you have this strike which is happening. It appears to be a strike, at least from Iran. We are waiting for a confirmation on that, which is coming in on this. In fact, let me go across to our panelists. Today, joining us on the show, we have Lieutenant General KJS Dhillon, former JOC of the Chinar Corps, and we have Ambassador Ashok Sajjanar, who's joining us, a former diplomat. We also have Major General Rajan Kochar, who's joining us, a defense expert, as well as Dr. Jeffrey Gunther, the former U.S. ambassador. I'm going to be going across to Dr. Gunther first. Dr. Gunther, it's very disturbing when we hear the U.S. president come out and say that we are weeks away from the war coming to any kind of a culmination. What we see on our screens is U.S. embassy perhaps under attack from Iran. This is coming in from Kuwait. How long before this continues? Because the flames of war can never be isolated.
Well, I can tell you this much. It's a whole lot better than Iran having a nuclear weapon. We are already seeing the benefits of this, as we see in Lebanon with the Lebanese government speaking out against the terrorist proxy within their country, saying that they want to arrest them. I promise you the Lebanese government would only do that if they felt that there was a weakening Iran. So absolutely, we do not like the loss of life. We do not like to see the flames of war, as you guys describe. But let me tell you, it's a whole lot better than these terrorist mullahs and so-called supreme leaders having a nuclear weapon. That's unacceptable. This is the right war. It's the right thing to do. And also remember, the Saudis and the rest of our fellow allies in the region, for public consumption, they want to appear to have neutrality, yet their number one rival in the area, their number one threat in the area has been Iran. So there's a quiet wink, wink going on amongst all the countries there. And though we don't like to see what we're seeing right now, I think it's a necessary element, and 3 to 4 weeks, it'll be a much better scenario.
The damage, of course, is going to be massive because it doesn't look like Iran is any mood to relent. Abhijit Iyer Mitra, what are we looking at right now? He's also joining us, Senior Fellow of the IPCS. There's Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow of the ORF, also here on the show. Abhijit, I'm going to come across to you. What do we fear for in the next few weeks? Because, well, of course, the impact is going to be on India as well, undeniably so, when the supply chains get hurt.
So the supply chains are already getting hurt because of this blockade of the Straits of Hormuz. It doesn't matter how much security the Americans are willing to provide to that particular choke point, because the question really is, will big transporters like Maersk and things like that even risk that passage with the threat, number one? And two, yesterday, all the insurance companies have put out notifications saying they will not respect any insurance with regards to passage in the Straits of Hormuz. So you're going to see the impact on prices shortly. In about a week's time, it should reach our petrol pumps here. This is number one. Number two, the real issue, I don't think anybody, there are some spectacular visuals coming out of Dubai and Bahrain on Iranian hits. The problem is, we shouldn't ever confuse that with the absolute military superiority that Israel and America have. They are going to do a job. We don't know what that job is going to be. I think regime change is a bridge too far. They vastly underestimate the control that, the oppressive organs of the Iranian state have on the people. Libya is given as an example of regime change from the air. Remember, that was a very well-armed rebellion that had already started out there with dissidents from the military. I don't see that happening out here because they have two armies, two air forces, and two navies to keep control on each other, and they are both equally indoctrinated. Right. The third aspect of this is I sometimes worry about, American and Israeli cockiness. If pushed too far, absolutely, panic reaction may ensue in Tehran, and absent a nuclear bomb, I don't know if they are panicked enough, if the leadership... In fact,
Abhijit, do stay on with us. Big breaking news which is coming in. The US Embassy has urged its citizens to take shelter as well. These are the initial reports which are coming in right now. This is in Kuwait. We were telling you how it appears that there is smoke rising from the US Embassy area in Kuwait. Then it's interesting that Abhijit Iyer Mitra was just saying that it is time that US's cockiness and also Israel's cockiness, as he says, should be kept in check, because at the end of it, let's not forget, lives are at stake and American lives at stake as well. You can see the visuals of the smoke which has already been spotted near the US Embassy. Firefighters, ambulances have been rushed to the spot is what we are picking up. Sushant Sareen, this is the cost of war. Yes, of course. Many have said, including those on the panel, that we are very circumspect as to what would have happened if Iran did get the nuclear weapons. But what happens from here onwards, because it's not going to be an isolated response?
Look, I think the nuclear weapons thing was still some distance away. I don't think there's any evidence to suggest that Iran was anywhere close to possessing nuclear weapons. But yes, I think during the negotiations, this is what we've learned from open source. The Americans did push, the goalposts, and they included the missile capability of Iran because that was a clear and present danger, much more than the nuclear, capability of Iran, which was non-existent virtually. Because if we go by what Trump said last year, they had virtually taken out obliterated, I believe is the word he used, as far as Iranian nuclear facilities are concerned. So the goalposts had shifted, and it turns out for perhaps valid reasons, which are that Iran's missile capabilities is a threat to the region. And the fact that the Iranians are targeting not just American or Israeli targets, but also the surrounding Arab states, which have very friendly relations with the United States at least, suggests that they are forcing everybody to gang up against them. So now it's no longer about nukes, and it's probably no longer about even missiles anymore. It's about cutting Iran to size, ensuring that Iran simply does not have the capabilities to pose any kind of a threat to any of its neighbors or any of its adversaries. And I believe that is the objective is going to be. Whether they achieve that objective or not is another matter altogether.
All right. Let's also get a word in from Dr. Jeffrey Gunter, former American ambassador. Dr. Gunter, Donald Trump has been quite clear in saying that while he's open to the prospect of diplomatic talks with Iran, the conflict could last at least 4 to 5 weeks. He made that very clear last night in one of the interviews that he gave. So where do you see this now heading in terms of the kind of duration that this might last? And of course, the very fact that Iran finds itself, at least in the region, increasingly isolated because it's been constantly at loggerheads with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, as well as Dubai. Each of whom now, Saudi Arabia, maybe not so, but certainly UAE as well as Qatar being at the receiving end of Iranian strikes as well. How long do you see Iran holding out, and will they press the panic button anytime earlier than the 4 to 5 weeks that Donald Trump has talked about?
Let's face it, the top leadership of Iran have already been eliminated. And ultimately, you get to the point where there is leadership who's willing to make a deal. And we all know that President Trump is a big advocate for communication. Remember, he communicated and had great meetings with the leaders of Pakistan. And Modi has a great relationship with President Trump. He will talk to anyone, and he will have dialogue with anyone. And ultimately, as President Bush told me, Bush 43 one time, the goal of diplomacy is get your hands around the neck and then tell them what you want to take them off. So diplomacy is not dead here. We are systematically, in a very organized and pragmatic fashion, degrading the Iranian terrorist machine. We see it in the cracks of Lebanon. We see how Hamas has been incredibly quiet. The Houthis have been incredibly quiet. And the allies have been giving very wink, quiet support to America and Israel in this endeavor. So I'm optimistic. Obviously, this is war. We're going to see some terrible things. There's going to be loss of life. I mourn the loss of our great patriots in America. But look at, we are doing the world a service right now. We're doing America the service right now. And we are helping Israel. And quite honestly, we're helping the Indian people as well.
Well, Dr. Gunter, there are those who have said.
Modi was in Israel saying, and I have to push back on some of you on the show, Modi said that he will always be an ally and a friend of Israel. So on maybe on official basis in the diplomatic skirmish, India has not taken a position. What he has said is he will be a friend forever to Israel. And that's important.
Well, Dr. Gunter, I disagree with you there, because the Prime Minister and India's stand has always been that it is civilian lives first, and we are going to be siding with peace and regional stability. That is India's official stand. However, Dr. Gunter, I wanted to ask you, President Trump has categorically said that we repeatedly sought to make a deal. We tried. They wanted it. They didn't want to do it then. They wanted to do it. They didn't then want to do it. Is any kind of negotiation ceasefire off the table? Because there are indications coming in from the Iranian side, like the Iranian Minister Aragachi has said that, yes, we may look at peace and negotiations as the way forward. Is that on the table for the U.S.?
It's a great question. And of course, they're going to negotiate. And of course, we're looking for hopes for peace. And eventually, as their leaders get cycled through, let's face it, there's a problem right now with who's going to replace, Khomeini. They can't figure it out yet. There's a crisis. So ultimately, the damage will be big enough. The loss of leaders will be extensive enough. And yes, there will be a negotiated settlement. And yes, the brilliance of President Trump diplomacy is he's willing to talk to everyone. And it doesn't show weakness. It shows strength from my friend and my former boss.
Well, many thanks, Dr. Gunter, for your views.